appointed hour at 5:30, we will call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call of the commissioners?
Certainly. Dr. Ruth Cox.
Here.
Trip Urey.
Here.
James Bisbee.
Here.
Peggy Broadway.
Here.
Christian Evans.
Here.
Dr. Joseph Klotz is excused. Ellen Sheridan.
Here.
James O. Woods Jr.
Here.
George Brake. Sorry, Mr. George.
So we have a quorum. There are no minutes to be reviewed this evening. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, based on the U.S. Department of Interior standards, state standards, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant by parties who received notice of the hearing and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly to the specific historic guidelines. Likewise, commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinion, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decisions on application is based solely on testimony and evidence presented at a hearing that directly relates to the historic guidelines. If you can swear in any presenters that we have this evening.
Certainly. Anyone who would like to speak this evening, please come forward. And once you're sworn in, you don't have to speak if you don't want to. So if you want to come in just for extra credit, that's good too. All right. Everyone, right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge? Okay, if you could please sign here and give me your address.
As the last witness has signed in, we will continue. Here's a summary of how we will generally conduct a hearing on a COA application. The HPC administrator provides an overview of the application. The applicant or their representative presents the application. Proponents and opponents who received notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and proponents and opponents who received notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HPC administrator presents the staff findings and recommendations. The applicant or their representative has an opportunity to make final comments on their application. Commissioners discuss the evidence and may ask for clarification from the applicant or their presenter. The chairman calls for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated finding of fact. The motion is discussed by the commission. The chairman calls for a vote on the motion by the commission. The COA can be approved with conditions, or denied. So we will go to the applications at this point. However, let me first say this, as we had from our last meeting, that one of the things that our commissioners wanted to do was to go over the most recent guidelines that had been set forth from the Park Service. These are these guidelines, and they're guidelines on flood adaptation for rehabilitation of historic structures. And we have met and gone over these guidelines, and we're going to, as a commission, do several things to help us better understand how to apply these guidelines to our work here in New Bern. We have an opportunity to ask for a grant for someone to come down here and help us create some guidelines related to these suggestions in this document. We are also going to contact other cities that are near us who are dealing with the same issue we are. For instance, like Little Washington has a waterfront, and the water comes up there. So we're going to do that, and we're also going to ask people from the state office to come down and talk with us to help us figure out some guidelines that will address this issue of flooding and raising structures in the historic district, because there are none at this point in time. So I just wanted to report back on that, since we did talk about that at the last meeting. The next thing is that we have, let me first say, item G on the agenda, 613 Broad Street, will not be heard tonight, if there's anyone in the audience who was waiting for that. The next thing is that we need to move item C, that has to do with Union Pointe Park, up to the beginning of our agenda, because one of the people dealing with that has to leave and go to another meeting. So can I have a motion from one of the members to alter the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, we will then take item C, Union Pointe Park, as our first item on the agenda tonight, and then we will stick with the rest of the agenda, understanding that item G, 613 Broad Street, will not be heard tonight. Okay? So let us start with Union Pointe Park.
There we go. All right, so this is the beginning of the application. And this is for a project to include replacing the previous stationary bulkhead, which was destroyed by Florence, with a new bulkhead with hog slat decking, concrete hog slat decking. And you can see it's a full, complete application. This gives you an overview of the project and the drawings for the project. Let's see. It's on the southern side of Union Point Park, down here, right along where the Trent River meets the Neuse River. And it's not these three pieces that are sticking out, but the horizontal piece that is parallel with the shore and attached to the shore. This is a permanent structure. The others are floating structures. This is a drawing which shows the construction drawings for this with a previous proposal as wood decking. It'll now be the concrete hog slat decking, or that's the current proposal. This gives you some idea of the structures that are involved. We don't have the full drawing shown, sorry. There we go. And then this gives you a slight perspective of some of the structure of that. And then, now that I've zoomed all the way out, I have to zoom all the way back in again. This is a photograph of during Florence, showing how that entire section was destroyed and is here. The former decking is floating, I believe, whereas the structure is underwater. These are images from before, showing the wood decking as it was before, more permanent docks heading out perpendicular to the structure. So now this is an image of what the concrete quote-unquote hog slat decking would look like, although not this is a perpendicular image, it would be parallel with the shore. And so we have our zoning and inspections report, and then our recommendations once if the applicant would wish to make some more presentation.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Foster Hughes. I'm Director of Parks and Recreation with the City of New Bern. And the reason we are wanting to mitigate this stationary dock, it was a wooden dock, and we have lost that 3 times over recent history. And so our research has told us that we need to have some way to help prevent that hydraulic lift from taking those docks away. And so the hog slat is a great alternative. It lets the water, when we have flooding, it lets the water go through the holes in the decking without any type of serious damage. And so we've looked, it's a very reasonable cost alternative for us, and so this is what we are recommending to go back at Union Point Park. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone here have any questions? Do we have, because he's got to leave, do we have anyone in the audience that would like to ask any questions at this time? We're a little bit out of order since he has to leave. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak for, speak against this? Seeing, okay, we have one person. Mm-hmm.
Well, there was only one entity that was notified because they're the only one within 100 feet, and that was the county.
Okay.
My name is Al Marino. I'm a resident of Fairfield Harbor, and I just want to add testimony to the effectiveness of these hog slat for this type of operation that they're planning for, especially with rising water. They stay in place, whereas wood tries to float and oftentimes does and floats away. So anybody who has put those in has survived hurricanes very well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure you have one more.
Oh, okay, one more? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
As a survivor of Florence with my salt slat dock, I would like to remind everyone that not only are they, water can go up between them, they're put in with 6x6 timbers, whereas most of the wood docks are put in much less thing, and they're put down with nails or screws. These are put down with 12-inch steel bolts onto those 6x6 timbers.
Okay.
Very sturdy.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So, members, do we have anybody who has a conflict of interest regarding this? Anybody got a question related to completeness of the application? Okay, so we've had the application presented. You said the only person who was notified was the county, and there's, okay? And we've had two people come forth to talk about being proponents of this. I see anyone who would want to be an opponent. Seeing none. Okay. Would the applicant like to say anything else about your application? Okay. Is there any rebuttal by opponents or proponents? We don't have any opponents. Okay. All right. Would you like to give staff findings now? I'm going to let you do it now.
Certainly,
Get up.
yes. So the staff findings and recommendations are as follows. To include replacing the previous stationary bulkhead, which was destroyed by Florence, with a new bulkhead with hog slat decking. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. For waterfront modifications, 2.9.3. The statements of reason based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: the project is located within the primary AVCs. The bulkhead will be wood construction with concrete panel decking. And 3, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the Commission approve this application to include replacing the previous stationary bulkhead, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Okay. Do we have anybody from the city, state, government that would like to speak? Seeing none, does the applicant wish to make any final comments, sir? Having none, let our members of our panel here have a discussion about the application. Any discussions you all would like to have?
Yes, ma'am. Real quickly, Foster, just want to confirm what we talked about in design review. So it's my understanding that this is essentially an extension of the bulkhead.
That is correct.
Which is the top of the structure at the water's edge.
Yes.
And it runs parallel with the bulkhead.
That's correct.
And that's the limit of the use of this material.
Correct.
And then, if I recall correctly, we'll still have piers of the floating variety like we've had in the past. And obviously, you've got to do some work to them, but that's all replacement in kind. But more importantly, that'll have the wood decking.
That's correct. The 3 perpendicular floating docks will be wood construction.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else here have any questions? Okay, so I call for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we find the application for certificate of appropriateness for Union Pointe Park, 100 East Front Street, to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinances, Section 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. The chapter on waterfront modifications, guideline 2.9.3. Statement of reasons being that the bulkhead is a contemporary concrete construction requiring an engineered decking to deal with the hydraulics. The bulkhead extension is a concrete panel decking matching the existing bulkhead cap, which is concrete. And then lastly, the concrete is a traditional material and it's being used in a traditional way.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Does any other members have any questions about the motion?
May I suggest that the motion include that that it is not incongruous with the guidelines.
No exception taken.
Okay.
And
Is the second okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. So, let us call for a vote. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. So I call for a motion to issue a COA.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, it has passed and you can receive your CO for this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So if we can go, we'll go back up to the top of our business to number A.
All right. This is the application for this project, which is to include elevating the existing house, replace the brick foundation, which will include flood vents along the sides and back, replace the front brick stairway and brick post piers with new brick, replace concrete porch floor with new matching concrete porch floor, remove existing railings on the sides of the porch and add new railings along the front and sides of the porch. Existing front porch posts and roof are to remain. Replace rear concrete porch, wood columns, steps, and railings with wood porch, railings, and steps. Existing rear porch roof is to remain. And you can see this is also a complete application, signed at the bottom. We have an email regarding the BFE for the base flood elevation for the new maps that are expected to be adopted in about 6 months. That will be 9 feet. And then there's also a 2-foot required freeboard by the city, comprising a total of 11 feet from sea level as a requirement for the building code. And so now we can go to the drawings. Sorry. There we go. So the first drawing shows the proposed front elevation and also an aerial of the house, and the second application, which is the smaller house in the back on the left. Okay, come on. Can't quite see what's going on. Okay. So this is the floor plan, which essentially shows no real change to the floor plan except for the front porch and the front yard, front steps. And then the back porch is replaced with the new porch and steps. This plan is the same, except it's colored to show the landscaping and the new porch deck out front, concrete porch deck out front. Some images at the top showing the existing building, and then the elevations, architectural elevations of the existing building shown here. Of note is that the existing floor level is 2 feet approximately above the existing grade. And this is the proposed elevation, or elevations for the structure, which now puts the building at 4 foot 4 inches above the existing grade, for a total of 11 feet 4 inches from sea level. Then there is also a rendered elevation here to show, this also shows the 3-foot retaining wall out front, and shows the landscaping along the side that's used to mitigate some of the issues about the height of the house. And it also shows then the other side of the house here with a deck in the back. The rest of the documentation is here, authorizing Ms. Afflerbach to be the spokesperson for the applicant. Here's the elevation certificate, which shows what the existing height or floor level is for the existing house, and that included some photographs. Then we also have here the letter from the State Historic Preservation Office providing their advice on this application. And of note, of course, are the bullet items here. The first of which is regarding the previous proposal for the height of the elevation, that it was, in their opinion, to be a little too excessive. And second was the previous proposal to have recessed panels between the foundation piers, which have been subsequently removed. The third bullet item is the front and rear masonry staircases. They had issues about how it changed the character of those, and so those designs have been changed as well. And then finally, the fourth bullet is simply adding up these various items together could cause some consternation regarding the character of the building and its contribution to the character of the district. It is currently a contributing resource, and so that would be an issue. They, of course, also, I'm sorry, we went over this before, but for the record, they also indicated that the HPC should also consider not just this letter, but also any previous decisions that the HPC has made in the past in consideration of this, as well as just the special conditions that are at the site that the State Historic Preservation Office may not have been able to discern. And then we have our zoning and inspections form here. So the application includes a proposal for a row lock. So because I had to look it up, I thought maybe you might want to know what a row lock is too. So that's this third row down on the top here. It's bricks in a different direction. And it's also shown here as a second one below, but the proposal only includes one of those. And so we also have some other photographs of the surrounding context that staff is providing for you. That's the, this one on the top is the subject property with the central stairs just going straight out to the sidewalk. The properties to the left begin with this one on the left here, which is on a relatively low foundation. And this is also shows the amount of space between the two, and also reminding you that there's a driveway on the left side of the house. Then that same, is that the same house? Yes, that's the same house there on the right, but now the next house over to the left has this brick and fencing fence, which is better seen here, and you can see there the foundation is higher than the previous house we just saw. Then on the corner is this house, which also is elevated already, probably originally this way. And you can see they also even have a small little retaining wall around the front of the property for their landscaping and to hold a higher level of soil back. And so this is a view of the entire streetscape. I should probably zoom in so you can get a better feeling for that, because this is part of the your judgment as to the character of the district and how raising the house, which is the subject property, is down here, this small, actually one-story, it's the only one-story house along the street frontage. There is, of course, the neighboring one that's set way back, but as far as the streetscape goes, that's the only one. Next is to look at the adjacent properties to the right of the house or to the north, and that's the house that's set way back on the property, currently under its own elevation process. And however, it will not, the actual house will not get any taller. They're actually removing some of the roof in the back and elevating the inside of the house. So this also gives you a sense of the height of the house now, with the height of the foundation wall there. Then, of course, the new house that then comes next down the block, and the highest house we've seen so far, although that is a new house, and that was built to the building code requirements, I think, plus a little bit higher. Across the street is this other new house as well. This also is elevated on a brick foundation, and the steps come straight down the front, brick steps down the front. Then next to that is a vacant lot, and next to the vacant lot is where the vacant lot is, where we've approved now a new house for that one as well, which also has a brick retaining wall right along the sidewalk, and then garden space, and then the house is set back from that, and the stairway goes straight from the sidewalk up to the front door, and that also is elevated. Sorry, I don't have that image with me tonight. This then is the next one. You can see it too has 2, 4, 6, 7 steps up to its first floor level, even though on the side the siding seems to extend lower. Then the one on the corner, well, there was another house next to it that I don't have a picture of, and then there was one on the corner which is currently 10 feet in the air because it's being elevated and will be lowered back down to about 6 feet off the ground. This then is the next one on the corner of King and East Front, and this one also has a short retaining wall for its front garden, as well as being elevated up about 4.5 feet, maybe 5 feet. I do have some closer up images to give you an idea. This is now also gives an idea of the streetscape there, similar to the other one. And here as well. And so this being taken at my eye level would be, say, 5'9", something of that nature. So the horizontal line, which the second board here might be about 5'9", so maybe this is about 5 feet, the bottom of the siding. Also, there are some foundation plantings here, relatively short. And then lastly, I did take a shot where the porch is really pretty much at eye level, and you can barely see in the background there's a little step on the porch to go into the house. So the actual finished floor level might be about 2.5 boards up this side here. Okay. And then an overall view of that streetscape. And we're back to the point of beginning. So whenever you're ready, we have our findings. And
Madam Chair,
recommendations.
I received notice of this hearing because I live across the street.
So you need to recuse yourself.
I do indeed.
Okay. So we have a motion for you, can we have a motion for her to recuse
So
herself?
moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposition? No. So if you'll have a seat in the audience.
There is.
While you're doing that, does any of the members have any issues with the completeness of the application? Hearing none. If the applicant would like to present your application, and then as you do your presentation, would you also do what he did in the letter that Chip Oak sent us, where they identified some of these things? If you will identify how you've addressed this in this present application.
Just to review the changes that we made from the previous application to this application, we've lowered it a foot in understanding that the base flood elevation is going to be raised a foot, and then the 2-foot freeboard. That means the finished floor will be required to be at 11 feet. After talking to building inspections, really, and from just a construction standpoint, that 11 feet is best served at the underside of the floor joist. Because if you go right to the finished floor and you think about water coming right to that finished floor, there's, lots of houses have batt insulation underneath. While it is possible to put in a closed cell foam insulation underneath the house, there's lots of electrical wiring that comes up through the floor, lots of things. So we originally had it at the underside of the floor joist at 11 foot, and Matt suggested that we take that down a little bit farther. So we're at 11.4 to the finished floor, allowing for some closed cell foam insulation that hopefully will not get wet. So that's how we arrived at the finished floor height, bringing it down, and just hopefully that finished floor will not flood. And the other change that we made was to put in the 3-foot retaining wall in the front here, as you can see. It indicates the height that we are raising the house. And then the row lock going around the side indicates the height of the previous elevation. So to try and add a little bit of historical remembrance to the new design. And then the relationship of the front porch to the yard will be similar to what it was previously. So we've made those changes. The other change is that we had originally requested that front porch to be made out of wood, and we're going to go back with the original concrete slab that's there. So it's not clear to me if they can raise that slab or if they will have to demo it and build it back again. But either case, it will be similar to what is there now. Mr. Shelley went through the letter specifically, and so from the points that they had made, we're lowering the house. We are putting in historical indications. In the new design, we are attempting to not change the relationship of the steps to the sidewalk and the front porch, even though they do extend almost out to the very end of the sidewalk. We had looked at trying to move the house when they raised it, to move it back. It's just a lot more expensive, and so we were hoping to leave it where it is, and with this new design, add some compromises to it.
Do you want to talk about your your shrubs and things around the house?
I don't know what the landscape material is exactly. I've spoken with the owner, and she is willing to put in a boxwood or an azalea, and that specific shrub would come back
You're
to,
gonna come
to
back
that.
to that.
It's an indication that a low shrub would hide some of that foundation. It's only along the one, on the other side, it's just not really feasible to grow something down that side. And so we've only shown it on, at the front, oops. Oh gosh. Along the new porch, no, and then along the right-hand side.
And you're not gonna put it on the left because why?
If we can get back down to the photos, there's quite a bit of gravel along that side, and it just doesn't seem. Oh, it's the very top.
Oh,
Your photos.
my photos, oh, yeah,
Very down here.
not that far. It's too-
Oh, oops, sorry. Oh, that's the other one. Where they-
That one there?
Yeah, this is the side that we are proposing to put the shrubs down all the way, but regardless, they would be along the sides of the new retaining wall. Not sure if we've got a
5 pages up,
picture.
that gap between the two. There.
Oh, the other side. No.
So, 5 pages. There it is.
Oh, I guess we can put them down there. It seemed that the open view, I mean, they park along there. I suppose we could put them along there if you wanted us to. It just, the house is there. It didn't seem like it would be as much of an issue.
I think we would want you
We
to,
could work with, we could
if you're gonna raise that foundation on that side.
We could possibly even work with, say, trellis with some, say, rose vines or something on there. That way it would stay 6 inches to a foot wide instead of 2 feet.
Yeah, the open view from East Front Street seemed to be the one that was most concerning.
Yeah.
But if you want us to put landscaping down that side as well, we can do that.
The retaining wall's going to go on the other side of
The retaining wall is only going to be from the front porch to the sidewalk.
To the sidewalk.
Yeah, it will be in line with the foundation.
As it sits there now, the siding extends 1 course or a foot below the porch.
Yes.
And if you added another course of siding, you'd cover up a foot of the brick. Is that an option for you?
I don't think it, when we put the row lock in, to me, that indicates the previous, foundation height. And if you added more siding below that, it would come down almost to it and change that relationship. Plus, it's asbestos siding.
It is asbestos siding, yeah. Well, what I think with a short house, if you will, the issue is the amount of brick versus the house.
Yeah.
And that, when I looked at it, that's what I saw. If I add another course of asbestos siding, then that balances that out more to what it is today.
I mean, I guess that's a possibility. That to me, changing that relationship of seeing the siding on the front and then seeing it so far down on the side is not a
That's
great.
the way it is today, though.
Sorry?
That's the way it is today.
We're not changing that, it would stay the same.
It's not. When I look at it, when I look at your drawing, the siding is now at the level of the porch, and it was 1 foot below it.
No. The drawings are up.
One of those side views
finished floor height, and then the siding comes down over the side.
The siding, right, as we sit
And
here
then-
today, comes down about a foot below the elevation of the porch. And right now, here, it's a foot above it.
A foot
So you're suggesting it come down
above
to
the
the porch?
Yeah.
This is the bottom of the siding right here. That's the finished floor line, right there. So that's the bottom of the siding right there.
Where the white ends.
Yeah, right there.
Which is right at the porch elevation.
Well, the top of the porch is here, where the finished floor line is.
If you look at it today, that white line would be 1 foot below the elevation of the porch.
Okay.
Below the elevation of the porch or below the elevation of the
The porch.
side?
It today comes down 1 foot below the elevation
Of the porch, okay.
No, it's not at the porch. right?
Below the porch. So he's trying to help you.
No,
I am trying to help, yeah.
Yes, he's trying to help you here.
It-
Side view.
It's a little hard to see unless you have a side view of it, the way it sits today.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kinda
So he's
down
trying to help her.
Yeah.
with this one here.
We have a picture here that we can show you
This
if that
picture
helps you.
shows it real well.
The way.
You want to see this?
Oh,
Matt?
You want to come get this, Matt? We have a picture right here.
And I think we're got it on the screen.
Oh,
now.
do you? Okay. But she has a side picture. If you,
We can zoom in on this.
that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
right? That's what he's talking
Yeah.
about.
You see how far down the siding is from the porch?
It may just be a blow.
It's 1 course of asbestos siding below the elevation of the porch.
So if I understand correctly, they're not proposing to change the siding at all?
I understand that.
And with relation to where the existing first floor is, so whatever it is now is what it's gonna be later.
I understand they're raising the whole thing,
Right.
but the problem that gets you is the amount of brick versus the amount of siding it's out of proportion. And if you just add 1 more course of siding, it brings it back
Oh,
closer
I see.
to where you
So
are
you
today.
never, despite,
you'd have to add 2 more courses.
so.
One.
Because it's 3 feet, we're raising it 3 feet.
Oh, I'm not talking about taking up all of the change.
Right.
1 course, which is exactly what you've got right today.
So earlier you were suggesting that the bottom of the siding needed to be similar to its relationship with the location of the porch floor.
Yeah, just as it sits today,
Uh-huh.
make the siding come in relationship to the porch.
Right. So it will automatically be that exactly the way it is today.
Yeah, it'll look like it is today. Right. Yeah.
But except there will be.
There'll be
3
more brick
feet more
exposed.
brick below
There'll be
it.
more brick exposed, but it'll be 1 foot less brick exposed than what you would have had.
If you add another row of siding.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we're trying to help you out
Yeah.
here. You
I
look like
mean,
you don't understand what he's talking about.
I absolutely understand what
Oh,
you're
okay.
talking about. For me, the issue is that it's got asbestos siding on it. And, I mean, I guess we can put a hardy board product on that bottom row, but unless,
Are you not allowed to put that kind of siding on anymore?
they don't make asbestos siding anymore.
Oh. Something similar.
So, I mean, we'd have to put a different product below it. If you're okay with that, it might look different.
Well, perhaps you could bring us an example of what you would do.
I don't think that it's necessary.
I
I
know you-
think that, I think that the retaining wall in the front and the 3 feet and the row lock and the bushes, you know, for this scale of house is, you know, is not Inappropriate. It'll make it above flood elevation. If you you know, if you want the homeowner to add a different product below it, to me, that does not seem like it would create, I don't know. I've never seen another product blended in with asbestos siding. And so if that's something that you're familiar with, I'd be happy to take that back to the owner. But to me, that seems like it would create more problems than solve, in terms of either you take all the asbestos siding off, you re-side the whole thing, or you know what I mean? It's like,
Well, I'm going to let you think about that while we get on with the other people that we need to speak, because you'll have a chance, and then we can also talk about it as a board here. So we're going to let you think about that. Anything else you want to say about your application?
no.
Okay. All right. Are there any proponents who received a letter that would like to speak about this house? Seeing none. Are there any opponents who received a letter who would like to speak related to this house? Okay, so we don't have that. So is there anyone with relevant evidence that has standing that would like to speak about this house? Seeing none. Sir, if you would like to tell us your findings.
Okay. I'll skip scrolling all the way down there. So our findings and recommendations for 701A East Front Street to include elevating the existing house, replace the brick foundation, which will include flood vents along the sides and back, replace the front brick stairway and brick post piers with new brick, replace concrete porch floor with new matching concrete porch floor, remove existing railings on the sides of the porch and add new railings along the front and sides of the porch. Existing front porch posts and roof are to remain. Replace rear concrete porch, wood columns, steps, and railings with wood porch railings and steps, and the existing rear porch roof is to remain. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Modifications 3.2.1, 3.2.2. Foundations 4.1.2 through 4.1.4. Windows and doors 4.3.2, 4.3.3. Roofs 4.5.1. Decks and patios 4.6.2, 4.6.3. Masonry 5.1.1, 5.1.2. Contemporary materials 5.5.1 to 5.5.6. And I guess relocation, if you deem it necessary to apply, 6.3.1 to 6.3.3. So the statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs. Elevating this contributing structure helps protect it from future damage and potential destruction or demolition. 3, the proposed modifications do not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. 4, the applicant has modified the design to address the comments of the State Historic Preservation Office dated December 19, 2019, relative to their review of the previous proposal for this property. And 5, under certain conditions, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. I wanted to also add, actually, for this one, the National Register inventory description for the structure is it is 1 story, 4 bays wide, 4 bays deep, doors in the second and third front bays, a cat slide front porch, which is a roof, turn posts, brick piers, asbestos siding, gable end roof, central interior chimney, rear wing is 6 with a 6/6 sash, transverse gable roof, and exposed rafter ends. I mention those because those are the architectural features that are mentioned in the National Register as, I guess, significant to the structure. So we recommend the Commission approve this application to include elevating the existing structure and making the proposed pertinent modifications, citing the aforementioned guidelines, with the following 2 conditions. 1, the finished floor is not to be above 11.0 feet above 0.0 feet mean sea level NAVD. Would modify that to 11 foot 4 inches. 2, the foundation landscaping shall extend the full length of both sides of the house and shall have a mature growth height of at least 4 feet. Those are our recommendations.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody from the state, city, or any government body that would like to speak? Seeing none. Does the applicant have any final comments that you would like to make at this time?
I was just trying to look up and see if I could see online a real difference between fiber cement board, shingle, and the asbestos. And so it looks like it might be possible to get a shingle that is similar, but it would take, just a little bit of investigation.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing that. Okay. Questions, comments from the commission members at this point?
I have one. Matt, even though you put in there about the foundation landscaping, but didn't Sarah say something about on the side of the house with the trash can that they couldn't put vegetation down there? Or
Yes, I was expecting, or I was recommending that it be on both sides of the house.
And she has said that they could.
Yes.
She has said that they could.
okay.
And it also will come back with an FOC.
And you identified how tall it needed to be as well.
Yes, I would recommend to be at least 4 feet in height.
Absolutely.
That would take care of most of the additional height that we're talking about.
Okay.
And that would be a mature height, not initially.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question. Where are the property lines along the side? If you put the elevated wall along the front of the house, does it go all the way to the property lines on the side? And if you only put it on the front, does that mean you have if you're going to raise it that many feet, do you have to have a berm along the sides?
No, it's the raised portion is only from the front, right here, from the porch to the sidewalk. So it's in line with, the rest of it is in line with the foundation here.
So there's sides on it.
Yeah,
So it comes across the front and it goes down the side to the porch.
to the porch.
So
Yes.
it's like a box put in the front.
Right, it's exactly, as if you put
It's
a
not
box
just
in the
along
front
the
yard.
front.
The plan,
I know the problem. That's not a brain
Does
said
the
he's
property
going.
line go all the way to the driveways on each side?
I have, I received this quite late, if you could switch it over,
There's your, oops,
There it is, right there.
oh, it's
Right
still
there.
moving, but.
yeah, the retaining wall is really this here. So it's like a box on either side with the steps in the middle.
Okay, and is that the property line?
No.
No.
All right, where is the property line?
That one?
On either side?
So, this is the house that we're talking about now.
Yeah.
This is the one we're gonna talk about next, and this is the one that you had previously, and they are all within, they are all within one property line.
Well, there's no property line in between.
The one right there.
Yep, mhm.
So the property line to the left is, this house has a driveway right here. I mean, it's just grass, but that's where they park. The parking for this house is up here. Does that make sense?
Okay, so Sarah, if that's the property line and you're elevating the front of the house, how many feet?
3.
3 feet. So the house is level. So you're not running that elevation all the way to the back of the house?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and my question is, if you have the brick wall and retaining wall on the front, what do you have on the sides? to
Just
hold it
foundation
and
wall.
burn? Huh?
Foundation wall. Just the foundation wall. I'm not, let me do that.
So you don't have a screen, so to speak, on the side. On the front, you've got the...
That's what it looks like from the side, right there.
Oops,
Oh, sorry.
there we go.
Yes. So this is the retaining wall in the front right here.
Uh-huh,
And then this is the foundation wall on the side of the house here.
okay. And the shrub is the screen.
The shrub is the screen.
And the shrubs have to be on both sides and at mature height be at least 4 foot tall.
Yeah.
Does that help? Does that help?
I've got the answer.
Oh, you've got your answer. Okay. Any other questions at this point in time? So can we have a motion? And my question that I'm pondering here is what we just discussed about the bushes on both sides is part of your recommendation that we are going to vote on. So we don't have to add anything to that.
No, you would have to make that a condition.
Make that a
Whatever I
condition.
recommend as a condition is only a recommendation, and you would have to decide if you want to include it or not.
Okay.
And if you decide to include it, you actually have to state that.
State that. Okay, so whoever's going to make that's why I'm trying to get this straight. So whoever's going to make the motion, you have to do that. You have to add that as a condition.
And my one condition is that it not be above the 11-foot 4-inch elevation as well, because as we have had experience with homes ending up getting elevated even higher after the fact.
Okay, so those are the two conditions that whoever makes the recommendation will have to add,
If you so choose.
if we so choose.
Quick question. This may be a typo or I may be misunderstanding, but we've got references for windows and doors, but I don't think there's any window and door work. Is that correct?
On the next one, we have windows and doors.
Okay.
There's an addition on the next one.
Okay. Well, that's what I was thinking. I think it's just a
On
typo.
there, okay.
And also, we're not doing any roof work. We're going to
No.
keep the existing roofs.
Yes.
Everything's
Yeah.
beneath it. We had a reference for decks and patios, which I don't think.
The rear deck
The rear.
is changing to a wood deck.
To a wood deck.
Okay.
But
the
that's,
front-
but that's in the
Oh.
application, the
Yeah.
wood deck.
Yeah.
That wood deck is in the application
right.
already.
Shouldn't have any contemporary materials, correct? Because of the age of the house. Well, we're not doing any roof work, so it's
Right.
not shingles.
There shouldn't be any contemporary materials.
Okay.
Flood vents? I don't know if that
They're
counts.
metal.
Do flood vents count as contemporary
What
materials?
about if she had
I mean, they're
the
metal.
siding, the additional siding?
Okay.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
think so.
I'm gonna get to that. That's
Well,
gonna be-
I mean, we can get that in a minute. That
Okay.
may be a little problematic in my mind, but,
Well, you're the architect. You know.
well, no, I was just checking references while we were talking. And then relocation, we're not relocating. We're just raising, so.
So the other addition that would need to be made is, the siding to be, one
Course.
side, one part down lower. That would be the other thing. So those are the three
So-
things that have to be added.
Here's what I'm gonna suggest. We're doing some railing work, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
And it's gonna be what, essentially replicating what's there? Is that
yes.
the plan?
You know, I just noticed on this elevation that I did not take the railing off. In doing that retaining wall in the front, the railing would not need to be there, and it's not there now. So it would maintain that relationship. So if you would allow me to take it off that front, on the side, it is, we have to rebuild it because it is too low. It doesn't meet code. But they would replace it in kind just taller, to replicate what's there, if that makes sense.
But the front of the house doesn't have those rails up there now?
It doesn't have anything on the front right now. I mean, we can put
I
them
guess
there.
it doesn't, it just has
It
the,
just-
yeah, it just has the, okay. And so you want to take those off?
I mean, to me, then that would really replicate, and that's what
What's
we were
there?
trying to do,
Yes.
what's there.
It is what we are desperately trying to do, desperately, we are really. yes.
Right.
We are. Okay, so we would need to note that, again, whoever's going to make this application, we need to note that, because she's presented that in the drawings.
All right.
Are you
So,
organized?
well, I think so.
Okay.
And so that's the decking we're talking about on the porch in the back.
No, that's the
It-
front.
That's
Oh, no, to the
front.
left there, and the,
Oh, it's in the back.
is that?
Oh, yeah,
On the
that's,
left-hand
that's it there. And what's
okay.
there
Yeah,
now?
And so we got railing back there.
Yes.
There is railing there now.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right.
But there are concrete steps in the back right now.
But we're going to replace that with wood,
We wanted to.
which is
replace
what
that
they did,
with wood.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's the railing in the front you gotta take out.
And Ruth, is it too late to make a concern?
No, it's
Okay,
never too late.
one concern I have, in the Parks and menu, or if we went over that, it did mention considering other properties alongside the one that was being studied. And the next concern I have is that by raising that house that much, and not raising the one in the back, which is gonna stay like it is.
No. Oh, we're,
Not behind this one, but the third
the
house.
one next door.
The third house.
Yeah.
I have a concern that, and it may be happening elsewhere in the city, that are we funneling water straight back between that, and by the way, I don't know how that house next door got there, but how it got so high, but I'm wondering if we were funneling water straight down to that little house that's at the back.
I mean, we're not changing the footprint except for the front, and, you know, to me, it's not
But
changing
you're
the
putting
flow.
in elevated walls along the side. I mean, it's all gonna be the same level when you get,
Well, currently the house, the entire house sits there now.
yeah.
So there are no floodwaters that are going higher than the house. And currently, I mean, so by raising it doesn't change the fact that whatever water is affected by the existing footprint, it
It's
won't
not a
change.
concern.
If you just lift the
It's not gonna change
3 feet of brick.
Okay.
Right.
If we berm
Thank
the
you, Matt.
sides or something like that, then it might be a concern, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the only real change though is the addition of the 3-foot high little gardens out front.
Retaining walls.
Yeah. So that's new. That would be new.
Okay.
But that's not a very large area.
Anybody else? Are you ready,
So,
sir?
yeah.
Who's ready?
So I move that we find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 711A East Front Street to be not incongruous with Historic District guidelines, citing New Bern's Code of Ordinances, Section 15411 to 15429, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Modifications 3.2.1, 3.2.2, foundations 4.1.2 to 4.1.4, masonry 5.1.1 and 5.1.2, wood for the porch decking 5.2.2, and then paint 5.4.3 and 5.4.4. Statement of reasons. The planters are terracing at the primary area. Visual concern helps conceal the elevation of the house. Elevating the contributing structure helps protect it from future damage and potential destruction or demolition. Proposed modifications do not conceal damage or remove significant design components or architectural features. The applicant has responded to State Historic Preservation Office comments in a letter dated December 19th, 2019, and otherwise the project is not incongruous with the guidelines, conditions being the finished floor not to be above 11 feet mean or 11 feet elevation, base flood elevation, and that the landscaping shall extend the full length of both sides of the house and have a mature growth height of 4 feet.
And the siding.
The floor elevation should be 11 foot 4 inches. Is that correct? Did you mean to say 11 foot 4 inches?
Well, I was blindly reading what's on this piece of paper
Yeah,
in front of me.
And I modified it in
To
my
11 feet
presentation
4
to
inches?
11 foot
Okay.
4.
That's fine.
And then the siding on the side, the additional siding.
Let's talk about that after you, if someone chooses to second the motion as discussion,
Okay?
I
Do we have a
second.
second?
if you don't mind.
I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion?
So I'm a little concerned about cement board on a 1950 house as a contemporary material.
Yes, if you use that.
I would like to think if we've got the asbestos siding now, it's attached to wood probably, right? That maybe we could still have the offset that Jim was talking about without having to get another material to fill in that gap, would we not?
Wait, I don't understand what you just said.
When we look at the picture, it's obvious that the siding on the side of the house comes down a distance below the porch. I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's attached to wood as
Yes.
opposed to the masonry.
I believe so.
So when
Yeah.
you elevate the house,
It will go
the
up.
masonry is still going to be there. The porch is still going to be flush with the finished floor, so there'll still be the 1 foot offset
Yes,
that Jim wanted, so we won't need a contemporary material to
yeah.
make that happen.
What- I mean, I think he was suggesting an extra row below that, but
Yes.
that
we know.
offset would still be there. That's what I was hoping that you all would let us do, just,
And-
raise it the way it is. 'cause-
In other words, what you have drawn is just a little different from what's actually there, so
Slightly, yeah.
if you leave what's there and raise it, it'll address that concern.
Somewhat.
We would like to do that, yes, that's what we were hoping
Well,
to do.
that's the context of the motion that I propose. Have I confused everybody completely?
Yes, you have. Yes, you
All
have.
right.
Not a-
Well, first, you understand my concern of contemporary
What's
material in
attached?
1950
Well,
building.
yeah, well,
Okay,
and
that's-
nobody's suggesting, I think, that you use any contemporary material.
We can't get asbestos
You can't
siding.
buy,
No, but we perhaps could look for something else.
A contemporary material,
so anyhow, that's my concern.
right.
So let's go back to the picture of the side of the house real quick that shows the drop.
It's down, right?
Mhm.
Oops. Go. Oh, no.
Yeah. It's not right.
Right there.
Yeah, if you could just zoom in on it a little bit.
It's the one below it, I
I
think.
think
Yeah,
so.
oh, gosh. It's tricky.
Sorry,
We
I
need a
didn't-
mouse.
I didn't mean to
Right
get
there.
excited.
Right there,
That's
that
one.
one.
All right, so unfortunately, that garbage can's in a really bad place.
Yeah.
But kudos to Jim Bisbee for noticing
Yeah.
on the side of the house, it's obvious that the asbestos siding comes down about a foot below the, bottom of the white railing
Right.
and the porch deck.
Yeah.
So when we elevate the house, that walking surface on the porch is going to be in the same relationship it is now to the finished floor.
And the siding.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna raise the house, that porch isn't moving. I'm also assuming that the that lower course of siding is attached to wood framing and sills as opposed to being attached to the brick that's going to get demolished.
Right.
Everybody follow me?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so when we raise the house, I think that detail you would like to preserve is going to be preserved,
Yeah.
eliminating the need to deal with.
Yeah, your drawing doesn't show it, but if you do it that way, it does.
And so,
That's what we're proposing, yeah,
so with
so
that said,
there's-
let me
yeah.
just add one more condition, that when you get out there and raise the house, should all the bottom course of the asbestos tile fall off on the ground, that you save it so you can put it back on there to replicate what's there.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's not going to fall off and
It's
land on the
sturdy
ground
stuff.
because it's nailed to something.
Yeah.
So-
Yes.
But I thought that he was trying to replicate this.
I think what she's saying and Tripp is saying is that's what happens even though the drawing doesn't show it.
The
If you
drawing
just
is a
raise
few
the house and
inches
raise the
off,
porch,
yeah.
it ends up looking like that.
Oh, it does, okay. All right.
We have-
Okay.
Okay, so have you finished with your motion?
Well, that's my discussion, and I guess I need to amend my, officially, I would like to amend my motion, which I've already offered, and it would need a second, I believe.
Second.
Okay. So does everybody now know
So-
what we're voting on?
Yes.
I do. I want to make sure you guys
So I
do.
say, does everybody now know
Why
what
don't
we're
you go
voting?
back through the conditions? I think
The conditions were, the finished floor should not be above 11 feet 4 inches. The foundation landscaping should extend the full length of both sides of the house and have a mature growth height of 4 feet. And that if in the process of elevating the structure that we should lose the detail that we see in this picture pertaining to the lower course of the asbestos tile siding.
We fix it.
That we're going to salvage the pieces that fell off and reinstall them so that it looks just like what it is in the picture relative to the porch walking surface.
Does everybody now understand what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. I call for a vote. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If anybody says no, say it now. There are none. So this has passed. So what about a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, it passes. All right? Okay.
And we are in concurrence that the front porch railing should not,
Oh, yeah, you don't,
Redone,
that's right.
I mean,
What do we do about that?
in
Yeah,
the
that-
presentation, she said that would be removed.
They would be removed, yes. The front porch railings need to be removed. Yes, but you're keeping the side ones on there.
Yes,
Yes,
because they're there now. You can see
yes, the side ones are on there that we can see.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So if you add that into your notes somewhere.
Mhm. Yes, I have.
Okay, it's one
You
of the
do have to
conditions.
raise them though, to meet the current code
Yes.
that we said
On the side.
on the side, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Ready for the next one?
let us proceed on to the next one.
Use the page down button. Okay, that was that one.
We lost Evan.
There you go.
This hand is so cold.
I had to put my coat on your head.
Oh, you can hold my hand, I don't mind.
Okay, the next one is,
It's not working still. No, they told us today that it wasn't.
Yeah, they told us.
Yeah, they told us.
here, I know exactly. All right, so our next item is for 711C, the unit behind the one we were just discussing, East Front Street. And I do also have National Register inventory description of this one as well. It is a contributing structure. It is 1 story, 3 bays wide, 3 bays deep, 6/6 sash, entrance in the left front bay, asbestos siding, gabled roofs with exposed rafter ends. So this project is to include elevating this existing accessory dwelling, replace the brick foundation, which will include flood vents, replace the front brick stairway and metal railing with new brick stairs and new metal railing. The existing front porch roof is to remain. Remove the rear concrete steps, add small addition with asphalt roofing, composite concrete siding, wood windows with 3D grills, add new wood rear deck, stairs, and railing. So, the application, page down, is completed. Again, the same email regarding the flood, base flood elevation being eventually 9 feet plus the 2-foot freeboard equals 11 feet, so same thing. This is a front elevation of the cottage with the new foundation and front steps. The existing, as mentioned, the existing front porch roof will stay. And then this is the floor plan. You can see on the left the existing front porch steps, and they'll be replaced with, of course, more steps. And then in the back, there is an addition, a small addition on the back, pretty much a mudroom, and then a deck with some stairs going down, a small deck with some stairs going down, to replace the previous 3 concrete steps. These are photographs of the existing structure. And then we have elevations of the existing structure. This one is currently, how far above grade? Okay. Just to avoid having to zoom in and out. 1 foot, 1 foot 4 inches above the existing grade at the moment to the finished floor. Making it 7 foot 6 inches above the flood, the sea level, 7 foot 6 inches above sea level. So the proposal is to, of course, elevate it to 11 foot 6 inches above sea level, and that would be 5 foot 4 inches above the existing grade. So an additional 4 feet in this case. It seems the grade at the back of the site is about a foot lower than it is in the front of the site. That's why we have an additional foot here. So we have the authorization for Ms. Alabak to represent the applicant. And again, the elevation certificate for that structure and photographs from that. Again, another letter similar to the previous one from the State Historic Preservation Office. Bulleted items here at the bottom, starting at the bottom of this page. And actually, the main ones are here in the middle of this page. Also, again, similar to the previous one, the first bullet item was a concern for the height of that foundation wall. The second one was again the concern about the recessed areas between piers and the foundation, which have been subsequently removed. The proposed use of frame instead of masonry for the steps and landings, so out front has now been changed to masonry. And then the cumulative effect of all of those potential being a concern to the contributing nature of the structure to the historic district. And then also again reminding the HPC to consider your previous decisions that you have had with other structures in the area, and considering anything that the SHPO may not have been able to discern from the information they had. So, and then we have our zoning and inspection review. So, and then our recommendations.
Is there, let's see, we need to get our member back from the audience. Does this still apply, does that still apply to you? Yeah, okay.
If two, 3 houses on the
Okay, because they're on the same one. Okay. Any other conflict of interest we have here? Seeing none. Are there any issues on the application's completeness that anyone would like to bring up? Seeing none. If the applicant would like to make their presentation. And in your presentation, if you would address each of the items as you did before from the letter from the state office.
Again, the changes that were made to this structure, since it's already lower in the back there, as you can see from the flood elevation certificate, we did replace the front steps. Instead of wood, we put back the masonry with the metal railing that's there now to replicate more similarly to what is there now, along with the row lock indicating the existing relationship between the foundation and the house itself. I have to say, on this application, I did not add in the landscaping, and I know that would probably apply to this one in the same way if you all wanted to put that in there. The rest of the application, it did not change from the previous one. It was already much higher just because the land is lower back there. So the things that we changed from what SHPO had said are the front steps to be, in more keeping to what was there, and then the detailing with the row lock along the side.
Can you show us the back, please?
Yeah.
What you're doing there? Because that wasn't on the house to begin with.
So it's a small addition, just with a shed roof. It's just going to contain a laundry room and just a simple wood deck with steps going down to the back.
So those are going to be wooden steps.
Yes.
So that whole addition is all going to be wood.
I mean, we had proposed doing a hardy board siding on it, and we had kind of spoken about that last time, whether, what do you put on it since it's got asbestos siding? Do you put hardy board? But, we're open to, if you thought wood, I don't know, wood doesn't seem appropriate, but it doesn't really matter either way.
And the roof is made of what?
Asphalt shingles.
Asphalt shingles. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Is there any testimony from anybody who was a notified proponent? Seeing none. Is there anyone who was a notified opponent? Seeing none. Anything else you would like to say? Okay. We have none of those people. Okay. Do we have anyone with relevant evidence and who has standing to present any information? Seeing none. HPC Administrator, we'll hear from you.
Okay, again, to avoid scrolling down, I will read. This application for 711C East Front Street is to include elevating the existing accessory dwelling, replace the brick foundation, which will include flood vents, replace the front brick stairway and metal railing with new brick stairs and new metal railing. Existing front porch roof is to remain. Remove the rear concrete steps, add small addition with asphalt roofing, composite concrete siding, wood windows with 3D grills, and add new wood rear deck, stairs, and railing. So the staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. For modifications, 3.2.1 and 3.2.2. For additions, 3.3.1 through 3.3.3. Foundations, 4.1.2 to 4.1.4. Windows and doors, 4.3.2, 4.3.3. Roofs, 4.5.1. Decks and patios, 4.6.2 and 4.6.3. For masonry, 5.1.1, 5.1.2. Contemporary materials, 5.5.1 to 5.5.6. And I think we've decided this is not a relocation. So the statements of reason based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. Elevating this contributing structure helps protect it from future damage and potential destruction or demolition. Proposed modifications do not conceal damage or remove significant design components or architectural features. The applicant has modified the design to address the comments of the State Historic Preservation Office dated December 19, 2019, relative to their review of the previous proposal for this property. And under certain conditions, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So we recommend the Commission approve this application to include elevating the existing structure and making the proposed appurtenant modifications and the small addition, citing the aforementioned guidelines, with the following conditions. Finished floor is not to be above 11 foot 6 inches above 0.0 feet mean sea level NAVD. 2, the foundation landscaping shall be added and extend the full length of both sides of the house. Oh, I'm sorry, that would, well, we can do that. Both sides of the house and shall have a mature growth height of at least 4 feet.
Okay. Is there any testimony from any city, state government personnel? Seeing none. Are there any final comments from them? Seeing none. Okay. Members, what other questions you might have? Items for discussion.
The only question I have, Matt, when you have one house behind another, is it still considered to have a primary area?
Well, so the entire property is considered as one property. It's 2 separate structures. It just happens to be 2 separate applications. In this case, this structure is actually in the tertiary area of the first house, but it does have side exposures, so that would be the secondary, and it of course has its own tertiary behind it. So that's why I decided there is no primary on this one.
Okay, thank you.
The other house that's on the property, I think that's to the right at the back, so it would be to the right of this house if you were looking from the street. What is the height that house is being moved? The height?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I didn't look that up.
The
Actual structure, the shell, is to remain
moving
where
the
it is,
internal stuff, not
and
the shell.
they're elevating the floor inside, and I think some of the ceilings as well.
So is that house going to be like 2 foot from the ground, and this house is going to be 5 foot something?
Whatever it currently is where it will be. Now they'll have to, of course, they've added some additional steps to get to the higher first floor area. And I believe there's to be a lot of plantings around that as well, if I remember just briefly from an illustration that I saw of that project. But I don't recall any, say, retaining walls or anything of that sort. Perhaps someone else can recollect better. This happened before I was on here. So,
Matt, do we think, I understand what you've written here, but do we believe that elevating this house changes the character of it at all?
well, obviously, elevating the house changes its character. It's a matter of whether or not the character is significant enough to be congruous or not congruous.
Not congruence or congruence.
Incongruous or not incongruous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to know what the other house that's sitting back there, because if we've got one house that's up here and another house is sitting down here, and then we have this other house that has been somewhat raised up, that's not raised as much as this house, then that's going to be very strange looking.
This house just does not have an opportunity to raise on the inside. It's just not an option since
Well,
it's so.
I hear that, but I mean, when we're thinking about looking at character and
So if this other house is not being raised at all, sitting back there, we've got this house in the front that's going to be raised up, and we've got this house sitting over here this new house that's been raised up. So you'd have to come, hold on a minute, hold on. Let's see if he has any information. Okay. What did you want to speak about? Come up to the mic and give your name.
You can't speak.
The White House has no roof whatsoever on it right now.
The White House has what?
No roof whatsoever.
No roof?
All of that on that house has been eliminated. So the roof has been taken off of the little White House in order to raise it. So it is changing significantly. The house, oh, well, I guess I'm automatically sworn in as a
I
member
was
of the
thinking she was
commission.
sworn in as a thing, but she needs to be sworn in. We'll let her be sworn in when she's done.
When I'm,
Okay, do
anyway,
we have a picture of the house that you're referring to in that picture?
well, I mean,
No, the
This
current
house
picture,
here.
because the roof is torn off it.
the
No.
roof is completely torn off that
Okay,
house.
but behind that trailer to the right is the house to which we are referring.
Right, it has no roof.
The roof is not what I'm asking about, it's the height. Is it
Right,
being
so the
raised
height
up?
of that house is going to change significantly, is what I'm trying to say. It's not going to be the same, it's not going to be way down there. It's still coming up, it's just coming up in a different way.
And how much is it coming up is my question.
I believe it is coming up several feet, and the roof will come up several feet. I mean, these houses were absolutely, well, it's been, 18 months since the storm. They've been uninhabitable since. They were completely deluged. And 4 feet of water, well, there was 4 feet of water in my house as well. And so,
But you don't have the answer to the question of how high that house is being raised.
I believe inside,
I'm not talking about inside.
They're
well,
not-
I'm
they're not
saying it's,
raising
the
It's
roof
not
still
being-
has to
they're
come
not
up,
raising the
otherwise you
shell.
have to be
Okay, and
shorter
so
than I
how
am in
tall?
order to
So
walk
how tall
around.
is it? So how tall is it now?
I believe what it was a modest house with maybe an 8 or 9 foot ceiling, and obviously you can't have a house with a 5 foot ceiling unless you're a member of the borrowers, and so.
But my question is how?
Right, so
how-
that's what I'm
but you
trying to
don't-
explain
but you
to
don't
you.
know.
I'm not the contractor and I'm not the
Okay,
architect,
but you don't know
but I'm
the-
the cross the street neighbor, so
Yeah, but you don't know is what you're telling
Well,
me.
I'm telling you that it is coming up at least 5 feet, but the way they're doing it, rather than putting a new foundation under it, they're going up this way, so that the finished floor height is still going to be flood proof.
I'm not. That's not what I'm. That's not the question
Well,
I'm
but
after.
but Ruth, so there's arithmetic involved here.
I understand arithmetic.
Okay,
but
so-
that's
Are you
not-
well,
asking
let
how
me-
tall it's going to be?
No, I'm asking how far is it going to be off the ground? So, for instance,
Well, that's what I'm trying to answer
It's
your
not-
question.
It's the
It's
same
not.
as it
It's
is.
gonna be the same as it is now.
and what is that?
Whatever that is now.
Above flood level. Okay, so let me give you the arithmetic. If the finished floor is going to be 4 to 5 feet, let's say 5 feet because it's a nice round number, higher than it currently is, and you still have to have 8 to 9 feet for a ceiling, you're now at 14 feet, then your roof starts. Correct? So,
But you're talking. Okay, go ahead. But you're talking about above where it is sitting now.
right, the roof is going to begin 5 feet higher than it currently does, or else the people have to walk around like that.
That's logically what will happen there.
Right,
We
so
don't
what
know the
is happening
specifics,
there,
logically,
so
it's
that
gotta
you
go right up.
understand that proportionally the top of the roof of that house and the top of the cottage will be at about the same plane. They're just arriving at that plane in a different formula. Does that make sense?
I
The
understand
house
what you're
is,
saying.
so it'd be like me on stilts.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so that you're not having a situation where it's like this and this. You're having a situation where they're the same, but it was less expensive, is my understanding, so this is a little bit hearsay. It was less expensive in this instance to arrive at that finished floor height rather than digging a whole new foundation to go up.
I hear what you're saying. And do we know what the final height of the house is going to be? Nobody knows the answer to that.
Well, I am willing to.
No, but you don't really know.
Well, from conversations with the contractor, it will be at about the same height that Sarah is producing, just using a different means to come to the same end.
Okay, so could we get the contractor to tell us that?
You can assume it's above flood elevation.
We have to assume it's above flood elevation, or else they wouldn't be going to the time and trouble and money to do it.
He was there today when I was there, and that's about what he said.
And can we get the contractor to tell us that?
Yeah, we do have the application, I believe.
But we can't get to it. But
Yeah, we
don't
can.
Oh,
If
can?
you go back to, it was Charles Francis was the architect for that, and we approved that.
About a year ago.
Maybe less than that, because I was on HPC, but James, do you remember? You remember everything.
I don't remember this one. I'm trying to go back through in my mind, and I don't remember.
Look in June.
I would have remembered it because the way we're talking about doing it.
Okay.
And I don't think I was here.
I could probably pull it up on my laptop we could try June or July's.
But we don't have it readily accessible at this point
Actually,
in time.
we do. I mean, it's stored on.
Well, but you'd have to do, but we don't have it readily
It won't
accessible.
take but a couple of minutes to find it.
If you look at the height of that floor and the height of the other floor, and both houses are going to be above flood elevation, to be raised above flood elevation. So to me, that means that they are going to be raised a very similar amount. I mean, that's, we don't have the exact amount. If it's off a couple of inches.
But they might be off a foot because they might have been using the current standard instead of the soon-to-be 1 foot higher, newer standard.
But it will be very similar.
But
That's only a foot.
my recollection is that we approved an addition for this house and a rear deck and new railing and everything else, and it was being raised.
So if the house was built on a slab, which it looks like it was, you go in the front door and the steps are inside, so if
There will be new steps going up. That I recall. There are new steps going up because the finished floor height where you walk around inside the house is going to be about 5 feet above where
so
it
the
currently
steps
is.
will be outside.
The steps will be outside. It will, like both of these other houses on that piece of property, unless you can, or Michael Jordan, in his glory days, you can't get from the ground to where the floor is without having several steps.
So they're doing one of the options that we talked about and that the state park talks about, which is
They are.
raising the inside.
Right,
of the house.
yeah.
But I still go to say, we don't know exactly what the height of that house
I've
is going
got
to
it.
be.
George has got it.
Okay, what is it going to be? Great.
Okay, this is what we approved. To include elevating for 711C, East Front Street, to include elevating the existing accessory dwelling, replacing the brick foundation, which would include,
That's this one.
what is this one? Okay.
I think it's B.
Is it B?
It's B.
No, it's 715 East Front Street.
It's
715. Okay, keep talking, I'll go back.
Okay.
okay.
Well, it wasn't in June because I just pulled up June.
Okay, well, I'm
I
trying my
got you.
best
I'm
here.
going to go back and look 19s and try to.
It doesn't come up.
It's 715 East Front Street.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it was in July.
Pretty good.
You were okay, and it says. Let me get. It's just the application. Well, this doesn't have anything on it to where we'll know the height. It doesn't say that.
But it does have a drawing of it.
What I have, it doesn't. It just I have the application for certificate of appropriateness, and I don't have anything else on that one. Hold on. I got a couple of them in here for 715. Of course.
You still looking?
Yes, I have it, but it just stopped loading.
Oh.
So this was in July. I don't know if I was here in July. Okay, so I just don't think it's meant for us to have it tonight.
Okay.
Is that 10? Did I say 10? Of course. We're not going to do this tonight because it keeps going out.
Okay, I've got something here.
It was in July. It was 2 of them. It says is that 10-4 somewhere?
I have a schematic that shows it being raised 4 feet. I don't know whether that's from the application or the approval.
Yeah, you'd have this thing back.
It's being temperamental.
Being raised 4 foot internally?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So they're not gonna be that far off then?
Do they show what the front would look like?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind, I can put it up on the screen. And from which month was this, do you know?
July.
July?
Well, okay, I think you'll see why I asked. This seems to show the building actually going higher, but I'm not, let's, do that. Not too high. And it shows 2 dimensions on the right-hand side here. 7'4" and 7'6", but I don't know what that's from. That's from 4'9" and something.
You can
I don't know what
expand
that's
it, Matt.
It looks like there may be some soil being put up around the building. I'm not sure either. The note with the arrow on the left says crosshatch indicates new CMU raising the structure 4.0 feet.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
However, I'm not sure that's actually what got approved. Because they're not raising the structure. They're not lifting the structure. I think this may have been a previous
No, that,
attempt.
Maybe, I don't know.
Structure, they're actually leaving the structure in place.
And what are they making, the walls higher to put the new roof back on to be able to raise it internally?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay.
Now,
So they're adding 4 foot to the top rather than to the bottom.
And again, just from my recollection, it seemed like the front wall was going to stay pretty close to the same, but I'm not exactly sure. And then the ceiling in the front rooms would be sloped up to an 8-foot ceiling, I suppose. But most of the major changes for full 8-foot ceilings were in the back of the house. So the attempt was to leave it look as close to its current appearance on the front, even though what's now an attic would actually become habitable first floor room space. However, again, kind of going from some recollection, and I wasn't looking at this particular issue at the time. This was about 2 months, 3 months ago when I looked at that. Okay. So do we have a different image?
No. So perhaps we can get one. Can we, in our discussion of this, can we put something in it that says that we're going to review this related to this house, related to the present house that we're talking about?
You can do what you want.
What, I don't understand what the issue is.
My issue is how tall is this house that's already been approved, how tall is it in relationship to the house that's going to sit beside it? If we approve what we've been asked to be approved tonight.
But neither of these houses are in the primary AVC, are they?
No.
I'm not interested in whether they're in the primary AVC or not.
Well,
Because you're going to see them from the road when you go back there. You're going to see these two houses. But, I mean, you asked what my concern was, and that's the concern that one of them's down here and one of them's up here. So we can get the information. We'll have to just go back and search for it. So how can we proceed on with that thought in mind? How can we proceed on with a motion that has to do with this house that she has presented?
Well, think about what the difference it would make if the house on the right, let's say, most dramatic case scenario, looks exactly like it does today, but the roof has changed. So the white facade stays the same, but the roof is different. And then the new structure, or the subject structure on the left, is raised to the full height of the proposal, versus potentially the white facade actually is indeed increased by 4 or 5 feet. With the appropriate roof on top, and how that might be with regard to, again, the proposal on the left. So what the difference is in terms of what you would decide for the structure on the left. Maybe it doesn't make a difference in the end what you would decide for the one on the left, considering the building code requirements and other factors.
Well, and it may or may not. It's hard to answer that question because I don't know how tall that house is on the right. And that's what I'm asking about, and we don't have an answer. So my question is, can we proceed with a motion that has some caveat to it so that we can check that out? So that we don't have one house here and one house here?
Yeah, I think you guys would need to craft that. Somehow you guys have to figure out how to do that.
I think you have to assume that they're going to be at the same height. If that application says 4 feet, However they get to that 4 feet, the roof will be raised.
Yeah, but what they looked at is not really what actually happened.
Regardless.
It is not regardless, though.
It actually is, because that's above flood elevation. So the floor, both floors have to be above flood elevation.
But we don't know how tall it's gonna be.
But we don't know the application. And
That's right.
And
We
to me,
don't.
this house should stand on its own. I mean, if
No, you know that's not how this works. Come on now. You look at things around. We had a whole presentation on what's on the street, what's across the street. We've had that whole thing this morning. so-
we know that both floors will be above flood elevation, right?
I don't know that we know that, because I don't know what that application says.
So they would raise the house
The
and not
application
raise
says
it
4
above
feet.
flood elevation.
Well, it says it's gonna raise it 4 feet, but what all has been presented is that the house itself isn't gonna be raised. The interior of the house is gonna be raised up, and then a different kind of roof, or the sides are gonna be raised up. So I'm trying to move us on, so how can we craft some caveat that says that we can review that, is what I'm asking, so that we can move on and get this house that we're dealing with here taken care of.
Madam Chair, I believe that if that's a requirement, I don't think we'll be able to make a motion to approve this based on that, because you don't have the elevation of 715, and that is your concern. So I don't think you'll be able to do that. Now, if we take 715 out of the equation, then we could make the motion to go ahead and issue the COA. But I don't see a way that we could do that with the height of 715 being in question and being in question.
Is it a requirement that all buildings have to be the same height?
I'm not talking about same height. I'm not.
Yeah, so.
Close is fine, but if it's this, then yes, that's a concern in terms of what might need to happen to this house, since we're gonna look at them back.
But under those circumstances, wouldn't the existing house at 711 be out of character with the street, because it's much lower than everything around it?
Well, it's gonna be much lower than things that are around it, because it's a one-story house anyway.
Right.
Because the houses on either side are 2 stories.
So let me try to help a little bit. Guidelines for development pattern, although I realize this is dealing with a situation that the guidelines don't address more directly. Guideline 2.1.3, the footprint, scale, and proportion of an infill construction shall be in keeping with neighboring properties, which is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
In general, it is not appropriate to construct a 3-story structure in an area that is dominated by 1-story structures. All right, so that kind of gives you some idea of how much difference maybe you can allow in your consideration.
And they've already done that next door.
Well, it's obvious it's not going to be 2 stories taller. So it's going to be within that range that the guidelines kind of anticipate it, if it were infill.
Now, that being said, and what I believe, because of what Tripp just said, if we would go ahead and I hate using this word, make the assumption that 715 is going to meet those requirements.
I can promise you it's not 2 stories taller than
Right,
anything
it's not
around
right. It will not be, everything will kind of blend in. I believe that we could go ahead and approve this based on that.
And I guess if we found out that it wasn't, we could come back and bring that up as an issue, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Would now, after this big discussion, would somebody like to make a motion? And we'll just have that as an understanding that once we find out the other, if we need to bring this issue back up, we will come back and bring it back up. Okay? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we find an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 711C East Front Street be in not congruence with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, Section 15411 through 15429, and New Bern's Historical District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of facts. Modifications 3.2.1, 3.2.2. Additions 3.3.1 to 3.3.3. Foundations 4.1.2 to 4.1.4. Windows and doors 4.3.2 to 4.3.3. Roofs 4.5.1. Decks and patios 4.6.2, 4.6.3. Masonry 5.1.1 to 5.1.2. Contemporary materials 5.5.1 to 5.5.6. Findings of facts. The project is located within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. 2. Elevating the contributing structure helps protect it from future damage and potential destruction or demolition. 3. The proposed modifications does not conceal, damage, or remove significant designs, components, or architectural features. 4. The applicant has modified the design to address the comments of the State Historical Preservation Office dated December 19, 2019, relative to their review of the previous proposal for this property. 5. Under certain conditions, the project is not in congruence with the guidelines. And I'll add 6, that the footprint or the height is within acceptable measures.
Do we have to add in there about the planning on each side?
I was gonna,
Okay, so,
with the following conditions. The finished floor is not to be above 11.4 feet above the mean sea level NADV. And 2, that the foundation landscaping shall be added, extending the full length of both sides of the house and shall have a mature growth height of at least 4 feet.
Excuse me.
Jim,
is it 11.4 or 11.6?
I heard 11.6.
Okay, 11.6.
11.6.
I couldn't remember if it was 4 or 6.
6 inches.
Okay, 11.6 inches.
No,
11 feet,
feet,
6 inches.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? No. So this will pass. Is there a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone who opposes? No. So you can have your COA.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We'll get back to you if we need to. Okay, so the next item we've already done, item D, 312 Johnson Street.
Madam Chair, I move that Ms. Ellen be allowed to withdraw, to join us.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I tried to bring her back before. Okay, Johnson Street.
Pretty small. How's that? Can you read that? So this is the application for 312 Johnson Street.
Matt, you gotta switch it.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. 312 Johnson Street, which is a contributing structure, the John B. Ives house, and the description from the National Register inventory is that it's Queen Anne style, 2 stories, 2 bays wide, wraparound front porch, upper left oriel bay window, and shed roofed upper right corner porch, gable and hip roofs, and interior chimney. So for this project, they propose to include installation of a platform and new backup generator, plus fencing for existing HVAC units, These alterations are technically in the secondary AVC, but the existing HVAC units are currently in full view from the street. Otherwise, normally they would be allowed to be a minor, but because of the full view from the street, I've bumped it to major. Sorry for making that. So this is a sketch provided in the application by the applicant. The green square towards the top of the screen is the location of a platform upon which a generator will be installed. Immediately to the left of that, the black or gray thin line is the property line and or brick wall, which separates the two back side yards. The rectangle on the left edge of the page is the neighbor's house. And then the horizontal line just below the green square is, and on the right-hand side shows basically the edge of the house, which has a jog in it. And then the two other squares are the two HVAC units you can see from the street. So the horizontal line just below the green square is currently a fence and gate, a white picket fence and gate, and which extends to the left also on the neighbor's property, also a similar white picket fence. We'll see those in a minute. The applicant is proposing to remove their own white picket fence and gate and add a new white picket fence extending out from the brick wall along the property line, and then you can see with the green line there, and then making a right-hand turn to the right and extending to the existing house in order to enclose not just the two existing units, but also the platform in the back. So, that's a letter to that effect. Also more similar information. And then there were some modifications in the process, so that's documented here to clarify some things. They previously proposed a platform at about 3 feet. Now it's at 2 feet, 24 inches. And the generator is expected to be 27 inches tall. So that should mean that it would be about the same height or slightly less than the existing brick wall. Whereas before it seemed to be maybe projecting above the brick wall.
9 inches.
So their white picket fence will also be, which is currently about 51 inches high. They will extend the white picket fence to go around the two air units, and they propose to make that fence the same height as the brick wall, which is 54 inches. So this is in the secondary AVC, so they're allowed to go to 6 feet, but they're only proposing 4.5 feet. All right, so let's see what else we have here. So we have some photographs. So there you see not only the two air handlers there, the HVAC units on the right, but the white picket fence and gate that they're proposing to remove. And then you see the end of the brick wall, and a new white picket fence will extend out from the brick wall straight out to the left of the screen, parallel to the side of the house, parallel to the wall itself, and then come out to the point where it comes in front of the HVAC units, make a turn, and then cut in front of the HVAC units. The platform would be installed in a location behind the current picket fence, which, as I said, will later be removed.
So, go back to that slide.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The new fence will be the same height as the fences that we see.
It'll be the same height as the brick wall. So a little bit higher than the current fence. You can see it's a little bit below the brick wall. All right. So this is peering over that little brick, over that fence into the area where the platform would be located near the brick wall. And close to the fence, so pretty much where that dark green area is, right above the points of the of the fence there. And there's a slightly different angle to see that same location on the left of their yard there. The hose is maybe pointing right at the spot where it would be. Okay, so, and these were images to show what the view is from the street. And you can see the units there on the right-hand side are in plain view from the street. And again, enlarged here, you see. And so then we have our zoning and inspections form, and then our recommendations.
Okay. Would the applicant like to present anything else?
Hi, my name is Mary Ringwald. My husband Eric and I own the property. Really, I'm open to answering any questions. I think Matt's presented everything that we want to do. We basically want to make the project as simple as possible. We think the picket fence around the air handlers will improve the look of the property from the street and for the neighbors, and it's very much in keeping with what's already there. We are simply proposing to make the picket fence an inch or two taller than the current gate is, on the off chance someone would claim that the generator is visible from the street, but it shouldn't be based on the heights that we're reducing that we're proposing to make the stand, the generator stand 24 inches instead of 36, just to be sure that it is not visible over the brick wall or over the picket fence.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any notified proponents that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, is there any notified opponents that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, is there anyone with relevant evidence and has standing who would like to speak to this? Seeing none, sir, if you would like to tell us what you all thought.
Sure, certainly. So our findings and recommendations for this.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Where does the fence actually terminate? Does it run to the corner of the house, or is it when you come out around the generators?
Where does it terminate, in the front of the yard, do you mean?
Yeah. It makes a turn at L and then it goes toward the house. Does it come to the corner of the house, or is it back further?
Can you see the images here? I believe it'll end up somewhere between the two windows here.
So you can see it in the picture, right? So that's that is roughly in the middle of our dining room, where the downstairs.
So in between the two windows?
Yes.
Okay, because that was my question too. 'Cause I didn't
It just
see
looks a little cleaner to me if you run it to
The
the
drawing
corner of the
shows,
house.
the drawing shows about 2 feet in front of the most front air handler, and then the actual porch, the corner for the porch is down here in the lower right-hand corner. Now, is that where the is that the front edge of the porch you show there, or is that the corner of the house and the front porch goes out farther?
That is the front edge of the porch there.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking
Yes,
about?
yes. Okay, so what she shows there is the front edge of the front porch.
Yeah, and my
Closest-
suggestion is just aesthetic. If it runs to the corner of the house, I think it looks a little cleaner.
You think it would look a little?
Just a little cleaner and neater if it runs to, if
Cleaner.
it terminates at where there's already a joint, which is the corner of the house, as opposed to someplace on that wall. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That would be a lot of area to fence in, and I mean, one idea I've had for the future would be to maybe do a little garden on the street side in front of the new picket fence.
Okay.
We also have a couple of crepe myrtle trees there that I'm not sure if you extended the fence on, if that could impede them.
No, I don't see anything when I looked at it today, I don't see anything in the way of doing that. But
So-
if you had a different plan in terms of a garden, it's just an aesthetic point.
Okay. I guess my feeling is what we're proposing is a vast improvement on how it looks now, and it achieves the purpose of masking the air handlers.
Absolutely, I agree with you totally
Yeah.
on that. It's just a matter of where you terminate it, that's all.
Right. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody from the city, state, any government person? Seeing none? Okay. All right. So, any other questions that anyone wants to ask about this? Do you want to make that as a kind of recommendation
No, I think
to this?
it's up to you, it's just a suggestion. I think we'd look at it.
Madam Chair, I haven't actually presented the recommendations yet.
Sorry.
That's
Sir,
all right.
give us
We
those.
got interrupted,
Okay,
so
sorry,
Adam.
go ahead. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is the 312 Johnson Street, John B. Ives house. It's a contributing structure, and this is for a project to include installation of a platform and new backup generator, plus fencing for existing HVAC units. These alterations are technically in the secondary AVC, but the existing HVAC units are currently in full view from the street. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application for utilities 2.3.1 and modifications 3.2.2. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the project is located within the secondary AVC. The project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. 3, the project includes screening previously unscreened HVAC units, and the new generator will also be screened by this new fencing. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include the installation of a platform and new backup generator, plus fencing for existing HVAC units, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Okay. Members, any other discussion about this application? Questions that you have? Anyone? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion. And I'd like to thank the Ringwalks for taking the initiative to screen off the utilities.
George, could you speak into your microphone, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I move that we find the application for certificate of appropriateness for 312 Johnson Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Applicable guidelines: utilities 2.3.1, modifications 3.2.2. Findings of fact: the project is located within the secondary AVC. The project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. The project includes screening previously unscreened HVAC units, and the new generator will be also screened by this new fencing. The project is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Your motion passes. Would there like to be a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none. You can issue the COA.
Christine, did you make the motion for this issuing the COA?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. All
So
right,
our
our next application
Yep.
happens to be right on the next page. How convenient. 421 South Front Street. This is essentially the farmer's market site. It is owned by the city, and the farmer's market is the tenant. This is a non-contributing structure, but the national inventory, it was there at the time of the inventory, and so there is a description of it as a one-story brick, 3 bays wide, 12 bays deep, with overhead doors in the east and west elevations, gable front roof, and properties enclosed by high metal fence and gates. So this project is to include the replacement of the existing garage doors with new garage doors in the primary and secondary AVCs. So this being the application and complete with signatures, both Matt Montaigne of the city and James Morrison of the Farmers Market. So this is the current situation with the existing garage doors, and they're proposing to replace those garage doors with these garage doors. The wall material is irrelevant in this picture. It's simply the garage doors. Almost exactly the same. The windows here are a little bit larger, and I think Jim will talk about that. Here's some of the cut sheet information about those doors. They were also provided in the application. You can see here windows are available in different sizes. And a lot more of the technical information. We have a zoning and inspections review. And will not require a building permit. So, and then we have our recommendations.
Okay. Is there anyone who has a conflict of interest with this project? Anyone concerns over the completeness of the project? Sir, would you like to give us some information on it?
I'm Jim Morrison, treasurer of the Farmers Market. Matt covered it well. The doors are about 35 years old. We are going to start a maintenance program to replace the worst first. And as far as the doors, the size, the scale, the material is the same on the new doors. The difference is the detail, and they're a little different in the paneling. It will still be flat, but the panels break a little differently. And we'd like to go to a 12-inch window height instead of 6, just to get better lighting when the doors are closed.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone here who would like to speak who was a notified proponent? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak who is a notified opponent? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak who has relevant evidence and has standing who would like to speak? Seeing none, sir?
So our recommendations for 421 South Front Street, the Farmers Market building. It's a non-contributing structure. The project is to include the replacement of the existing garage doors with new garage doors in the primary and secondary AVCs. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Metals 5.3.2 and modifications 3.2.2. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the primary and secondary AVCs. 2, the project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. 3, the project replaces metal doors with doors of the same material and design. And 4, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include the replacement of the existing garage doors with new garage doors in the primary and secondary AVCs, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Is there anyone who would like to speak from the state, the city, any governing body? Seeing none. Any final comments, sir, you'd like to make? Having none, what discussion might we have about this item, fellow members? Anyone? Discussion, comment? Okay. Could I have a motion from someone?
I move that we find the application for 421 South Front Street, the Farmers Market, to be not incongruous with the guidelines, that with the New Bern's Code of Ordinance, section 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historical District Guidelines, based on the following guidelines and findings of fact. The applicable technical guidelines is for the materials is 5.3.2, modifications 3.21, 3.212. The statements of finding of fact, the project is located within the primary and secondary AVC. The project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. The project replaces the metal doors with doors of the same material and design. And there you go.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Can I ask that you revise that to make sure you include the statement that the project is not incongruous with the guidelines?
I said that at the very beginning, sir.
Oh, all right, sorry.
That's all right.
I'll sit down.
Okay, that's all right. That's
It's
all
right on
right.
the cheat sheet that we have.
Yeah, it's all right.
See?
Could I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, you can issue the COA. Thanks, Jim.
I'll throw my light on the fire when I get downstairs.
That's right. Raise the thermostat.
Who seconded the motion after Christian did? So James?
Did-
And who made the motion for the,
I did.
and I guess I got, oh wait, I had you as a second. So who did the second on the issuing the COA?
Donna?
Who did the second on issuing the COA?
I'll volunteer if you need one.
Okay. All right,
Good
thank you.
man.
Somebody did.
Somebody.
We just can't tell from the video who it was usually, so. All right, next is 503 and 505 C Street. So this is a non-contributing structure, and there is no description in the National Register inventory for this building. So this project is to include the removal of 2 brick vents, replacing asphalt roofing with new asphalt roofing, replacing wood windows with aluminum windows, refinishing the front doors, painting the wood hand railing, installing new lighting, installing new HVAC units and fencing, and installing new gas meters in the primary. All of this work will take place in the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs. So this being the application, the estimated year of construction is 1950. And there we have the signatures. We also have authorization that Mr. Al Marino may represent the owners who cannot be here tonight. And they provided not only in the application, they provided this PowerPoint presentation, but it's all actually summarized by this one sketch here, so maybe we can facilitate. Let's see, zoom in. Okay. Pretty close. Okay. So this shows the structure. You can see the photograph, or maybe you remember the photograph. I see the photograph. And it's basically a duplex. And so we're showing, we'll go clockwise from the upper left, I guess. 2 new HVAC units, replacing the window air conditioning units. They'll also add screen fence for the compressors. You can see the illustration there. Then moving clockwise, removing the unused brick vents that are in the top of the roof there. Then to the on the right, replace all windows with aluminum double hung 2/2 windows, and I believe those would be similar to the existing ones. I can show you a photograph of that when we get back to that. The existing front doors are to be refinished and storm doors removed. Then replace the porch lights with 1950s style units, and then repaint the existing wooden handrails. On the lower left, add shrubs and bed. And then as we go up the left side, new architectural shingle roof, gray color, and then a natural gas meter on each unit. So going back to the slides, so here we see the front, and the windows, you can see, have somewhat unusual horizontal mullions in the top and bottom. That's what they're proposing as well. That's the removal of the two chimneys, showing now here an illustration without the two chimneys, what it would look like. Oops, sorry. Then the roofing would be switched out, and the windows replaced. This is the technical data for the windows, and a plan showing where the HVAC units in blue and the gas units in red would be. And here's a photograph showing where the HVAC units would be in the back corner of the units, and then around the corner is where the gas units would be. This is an older photograph of their lighting, not 1950s style as they now propose, and then this is a sample of their roofing. We have our zoning and inspections form here. It will require a building permit. And then we have our recommendations.
Okay. And so you are the applicant for this one?
He represents the applicant.
You're representing the applicants, okay. Do we have any we have somebody.
No, not me, yes.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
we're looking at-
You're going to represent the applicant, okay?
Yes.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that was very well done. Hope you all could see that this is going to be, I think, a very appropriate improvement to this structure, and will contribute to the neighborhood.
Yes. Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, is there testimony from any notified proponents of this project? Okay, we have one person coming forth. If you would state your name, please, ma'am.
Colleen Adams at 1233 National Avenue. I just want to know, what kind of fencing are they going to put in the back? Because where my property, when I'm in the side of my house and my backyard faces the duplex, so I have a great view of where the unit is or the fence. I was just wondering what kind of fencing they're going to put up. If it's a chain link or because I will see it.
Chain link fencing around what?
The HVAC.
I thought they had.
I couldn't tell by the picture, the drawing, what it was.
It's not chain link, I don't think. It's a picket fence.
Okay.
It was on the picture up there.
Yeah, I couldn't tell by the drawing.
Sorry.
The application should describe it as well. It doesn't specifically describe it, so we have to rely on the illustrations. So it would be this illustration here, sorry.
Yeah, I
The
couldn't tell by
fence up there, there's a fence around it?
Yeah.
Is that the question you're asking?
Yes. I was just wondering what kind of fencing it was, because I couldn't tell by the drawing. A wooden fence? Okay. Okay, that'd be great. That would be great. And the other issue is if this, because we've had some rentals and they've parked on the street, and we've had problems with the school buses coming down because people park on both sides and buses can't go through, and they would stop and knock on our door trying to figure out whose vehicles are on the street. I just ask if it's going to be a rental, they park on their side, because like I said, we have issues with vehicles going down the street.
You understand that's not in our purview.
Okay.
You'd have to talk to somebody at the city of New Bern about parking out there.
Okay. Okay.
But that's not our purview.
Okay.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
All right.
So we can't do anything about that.
Okay. Didn't hurt to ask.
I got, no, and that's who you can talk to. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any notified opponents of this? Seeing none. Sir, would you like to say anything else on what she said? Sir? No? Nothing else? Okay. Is there anybody with relevant evidence and has standing that would like to speak to this, which would be you? Could be in that category as well. Sir, would you like to tell us what your staff thinks?
Sure. Okay, so this being 503 to 505 C Street, and the application is to include the removal of 2 brick vents, replacing asphalt roofing with new asphalt roofing, replacing wood windows with aluminum windows, refinishing the front doors, painting the wood hand railing, installing new lighting, installing new HVAC units and fencing, and installing new gas meters in the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs. Staff submits the following historic guidelines as appropriate to this application. Utilities 2.3.1, 2.3.6, modifications 3.2.2, windows 4.3.1, 4.3.3, entrances 4.4.1, roofs 4.5.1, paint 5.4.1, contemporary materials 5.5.1, 5.5.2, and 5.5.3, and paint maintenance 6.1.11. Statements of reason based on the information contained in this application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs. 2, the project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. And 3, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the Commission approve this application to include the removal of 2 brick vents, replacing asphalt roofing with new asphalt roofing, replacing wood windows with aluminum windows, refinishing the front doors, painting the wood hand railing, installing new lighting, installing new HVAC units and fencing, and installing new gas meters in the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the city, state, or government body that would like to speak? Seeing none. Do we have any questions, members, that we would like to ask about this?
Go ahead.
I was just going to thank Mr. Al for the window change that we talked about during design review, and an aluminum window would be an appropriate installation for the age of this particular structure. So thank you for providing that.
I have some questions about the completeness of the application. But going back to the COA, it says remove 2 chimneys, new shingles, new windows, add AC and natural gas. And in your description, you're saying refinish the front door, painting the wood handling, installing a new light. And I think those are the main 3. And the fence is not mentioned in the COA.
In the actual app.
In the actual application.
In the actual application.
Right.
Right.
For housekeeping, I think we need to go ahead and submit, we'll add those because we don't want anyone to think that we're soft.
And the other thing in the actual application, I think we need to change those chimneys to vents. So
yes, we talked about
won't
that.
think that we're letting people
Right.
take down chimneys.
We mentioned that those were supposed to be vents and not chimneys because we don't want anybody to think we're soft.
We mentioned that in the review.
Yeah.
We certainly did.
We determined they're vents.
Okay, yes, so in a certain sense, the applicants included in the application, they have check marked off here, continued on additional sheet or attached brochure, which included that entire PowerPoint presentation as part of their application. So, but it's better to actually have it written on there.
Okay. Thank you very much for attending to those details. Anybody else, anything? Okay. Hearing none, could we have a motion for this project?
Madam Chair, I move that we find the application for 503 through 505 C Street. We issue a certificate of appropriateness. Wait a minute. Madam Chair, I move that we find the application that a certificate of appropriateness for 503 to 505 C Street being not incongruence with New Bern's Board New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15411 through 15429, and New Bern's Historical District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Utilities 2.3.1 to 2.3.6, fencing 2.5.3, modifications 3.2.3, windows 4.3.1 to 4.3.3, entrances 4.4.1, roofs 4.5.1, painting 5.4.1, contemporary materials 5.5.1 through 5.5.3, and painting 6.1.1. Findings of fact. The project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs. The project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. And 3, that the project is not in congruence with the guidelines.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. All of those opposed, hearing none, the motion passes. Do we have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those against, is hearing none, you can issue the COA. And thank you very much, sir, for taking care of these 2 little apartments.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Great improvement.
You're welcome. Okay, and last but not least for this evening, 216 Johnson Street. It is a contributing structure, the second Dr. William L. Hand Jr. house, built in 1926-ish. The applicant said 1923. And this project, the inventory, National Register inventory description of this contributing structure is that it's 2 stories, brick, 4 bays wide with recessed porch in the left bay, tall Flemish gable entrance bay, and gambrel roof with inset and shed dormers. This project is to include installation of new metal garage doors in the primary AVC, an infill section of garage wall with wood door, wood windows, and wood siding in the tertiary AVC, and new decorative metal fencing and gates in the secondary and tertiary AVCs.
Thank you, sir.
So the application here is complete. Sarah's also been designated as a representative. These are some photographs of the site. On the upper left is actually the side street where we see upper on the right-hand side of that upper left photo is the garage. Then in the central photo, you see both garage door openings and then the main house to the right. The upper right-hand photograph is of the front of the house, which is then on the other street. So the upper middle photograph is the side of the house, and then the upper right photo is the front of the house. The lower left is photo from inside the garage, looking out the back opening on the left, and in the center shows that back opening from the outside looking in, and then the lower right shows some examples of the doors that they are proposing. They do look like wood, but they are metal. And there's a sketch of the way they're proposing to close the back opening with a door down the middle. The actual opening has that kind of weird little knee walls at the very bottom of it, and so that are brick. And so the rest of the opening will be filled with siding and 2 windows. Some more photographs to give you an idea of the fencing. So this is a photo of the side yard on the upper left, the actual fencing proposed, and then the upper right in red shows where the fencing would be. So the front of the house is in the lower right-hand corner of that upper right photograph, and then the side yard is on the other side to the left. And so the fencing does not go around to the front of the house at all. It starts on the next to the garage on the upper left of that photograph and goes to the back corner and then back down towards the front of the house, but never past the front of the house, and then returns back to the corner of the house. Some other photographs there showing the character of that backyard where the fence will go around. You can see there should be a very small little retaining wall fence, maybe a brick wall about a foot or two, which is shown in the bottom right corner is an example of the wall, and in the center of the bottom is that wall continuing along the side of the house, as well as the one in the lower left as well. So you can see a small wall. The fence is to be installed on top of this brick wall. Let's see. Why is that going to, oh, sorry, going backwards. Here are some examples of other garage doors in the historic district. And I believe that maybe, no. Okay, so now we have the authorization and then our findings and recommendations.
Okay. Is there anybody who has a conflict of interest with this project? Seeing none. Any issues with the application's completeness? Seeing none. Does the applicant have anything else they would like to add?
I think Matt's done a very good job here, and I would say one thing. The picture you showed there that we're going to have a wood-looking door, it's going to be a matching color with the rest of the house. Much like if you go back to that last picture slide, there's one on 201 Johnson Street. See the one on the bottom right? That's a brick structure with the white doors off the windows in it.
So you're saying the doors will be white,
Well, they'll be the same color as the rest of the house.
which is dark
No,
brick?
it's not, it's
Oh, the rest of the woodwork on the house. Thank you.
Okay. All ready?
repainted right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd ask for testimony for notified opponents and notified opponents, but there's nobody else left in our gallery. So I think that we can move on, as well as anybody who has relevant evidence and standing. There's nobody else out there. So, sir, if you'd like to tell us what your staff says.
Sure. So for this project, 216 Johnson Street, the project to include installation of new metal garage doors in the primary AVC, an infill section of garage wall with wood door, wood windows, and wood siding in the tertiary AVC, and new decorative metal fencing and gates in the secondary and tertiary AVCs. The staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Fences and garden walls, 2.5.1, 2.5.3, 2.5.4. Modifications, 3.2.1, 3.2.2. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.3. Wood, 5.2.2. And contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 5.5.2, and 5.5.3. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs. 2, the project does not conceal, damage, or remove significant design components or architectural features. And 3, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve the application to include installation of new metal garage doors in the primary AVC, an infill section of garage wall with wood door, wood windows, and wood siding in the tertiary AVC, and new decorative metal fencing and gates in the secondary and tertiary AVCs, citing the aforementioned guidelines.
Thank you, sir. I don't think there'll be any testimony from state governor or government body, as there's no one left in our gallery. Sir, would you like to make any final comments?
I'll just be happy for all your work that you've done on all this.
Thank you. Okay. Do the members have any questions that they'd like to ask?
Are we to understand that the garage will be totally enclosed?
That's the intent, yes.
My question is the metal fencing, how, it's not going to be higher than 6 foot once you put it on that wall?
No matter what, in the back of the house, it will not be any higher than the existing picket fence that both neighbors have got down there, little rock wood fences.
Okay.
2.5 feet above 2.41 inches.
Okay, all right,
It's about 4 feet.
okay, all right. And you have said that the doors are gonna be the same color as your house? Okay. Anybody else, any questions anywhere? No? Okay. Could I have a motion?
I move that, read my cheat sheet. I move that we find the application, a certificate of appropriateness for 216 Johnson Street, to be non-congruous with the New Bern's Code of Ordinance, section 15411 to 15429, and New Bern's Historical District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and finding of fact. These guidelines are fences and garden walls 2.5.1, 2.5.3, 2.5.4. Modifications 3.21, 3.21, and 3.2.2. Windows, doors, and openings 4.3.3. Wood 5.2.2. Contemporary materials 5.5.1, 5.5.2, 5.5.3. Reasons and statements are finding of facts. The project is located within the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVC. The project does not conceal, damage, or remove any significant design components or architectural features, and this project is not congruous with the guidelines.
Okay,
Second.
all right.
Either one.
All right, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Do I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, none, hearing none, you can issue a COA for this project. And thank you, sir, for doing this for this nice house. I wore the shoes I got on and the crops. I read the message that said you couldn't do something about your feet.
I saw one of the
I did.
New Bern Facilities fellows yesterday or this morning and asked him if the heat was fixing here, and he said it was. So I did not. Didn't take any precautions.
Are we still in session?
Okay, so item 5 on the agenda, we've spoke about earlier, but I think, Matt, you have some information about this grant that we wanted
Yes,
to
I
get.
do. So,
Or did you want to talk about that now or
yes,
later?
I do.
Okay.
So, the grant application, we talked about at the design review meeting, and as was suggested in those State Historic Preservation Office letters about 711 East Front Street, they suggested that we modify our guidelines to incorporate some guidelines that directly address the issue of flood adaptation, I guess we should call it. There's a grant program that they have available in order for us to hire a consultant in order to help us through that process. So I have the basic information right here on the screen. We can go through this really quickly. It's not that long. Except I wish I could make it bigger, but I can't. So eligible projects include, among other things, local preservation design guidelines. And eligible applicants are local governments and local historic preservation commissions, as well as nonprofit organizations and educational institutions within the jurisdiction of the certified local government. Before preparing and submitting an application, applicants must, underlined and italicized, contact state HPO staff to discuss the scope of work and budget of their potential project, along with the grant standards and requirements. Grant awards, which normally cover up to 60% of total project costs, generally range from $1,000 to $20,000 and are available on a reimbursement basis. Local matching funds should try to cover at least 40% of the total project costs. And the grants are selected on a competitive basis. Applications must be postmarked or emailed to the grants coordinator by April 15th. They will announce awards in May, so only a month later. Project should be underway by the fall of 2020. So if we're hiring a consultant, that consultant would start their work hopefully in the fall of 2020. And all projects should be completed in their entirety by August 27th of 2021. So basically providing about a year to complete the project, or requiring it to be done within a year. It might take quicker. We might be able to start a little sooner than fall. Maybe we can start in August, who knows. But the grant applications must be submitted by or through the certified local government. That's basically the city. And City Historic Preservation Commission submit their applications to the HPO, to the state. So the reason I go through that is that there is a potential that local nonprofits and educational institutions may also apply, but they must submit their application to the City Historic Preservation Commission, to you guys, which would then submit it to the HPO with comments. The the CLG Commission, not the nonprofit or educational institution, would be the CLG grant applicant. So you would basically be doing it on behalf of the nonprofit or educational institution in your name. And the nonprofit or educational institution should submit, therefore, the proposed application to you before the end of February of 2020. So just in 6 weeks or less, right? To allow time for you and the local governing board to evaluate it and submit it with comments to the HPO by April 15th. If a grant is awarded for the project, the CLG would be the grant recipient and would administer the grant project, even if the nonprofit or educational institution provides local matching funds. It may not come up and be irrelevant, but it may come up and we may have to actually act on that essentially in the March meeting. So, but they have to get it to us by the end of February 1st. By the end of February.
When are we planning to go before the Board of Aldermen and ask and let them know about this?
So my discussion with Jeff is that we don't typically do that. Apparently we have been, grant applications had been typically submitted to the aldermen on a regular basis, and there were so many of them that apparently the aldermen were, why are you bringing bringing this to us all the time? So the issue of the funding, the matching funds, would then therefore be the responsibility of the various departments. So in this case, when I discussed it with Mr. Ruggieri, he mentioned that, well, he has a small amount of funds that are available for these kinds of things in his budget for this year. It's probably not enough, though. However, the actual project contracts and the start of work and the expenditure of funds won't actually happen until the next fiscal year. So we would therefore have to make sure that we have enough funds to make the match in the next year's budget. So that's either it'll be in the budget package, and I don't know how that works here yet, or it's brought up as a discussion item. I don't know if that's done for all line items in the budget or not, or highlighting the odd things that are, not the usual transactions. So whatever the normal process is for approving the budget line item for the matching grant for this, that's potentially when it would be up for them to approve or deny.
So we would have to get with your boss to make sure your boss would have the matching funds put into the budget in the 2021 budget. So when we get ready to hire, so that I can tell you that's how it works.
Yeah.
So if you already say it's based on a departmental thing, then we have to make sure
Right.
that we get with your boss to make sure.
Yeah, and we meaning me, because I was going to do that today, but he's out of the office.
Well, I think we should do it, not just you, but us as a committee need to reinforce that, because, I think it carries a little bit more weight if all of us did it, not just Matt.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and who knows if it may turn out that it may be even more relevant to bring it up to the aldermen individually, essentially lobbying them, or he may feel like that's not really necessary if it goes through, if it's in the budget. In the past, it hasn't been an issue, so, but it sometimes doesn't hurt to just talk to your alderman and make sure that they're on board. They aren't surprised, blindsided by anything.
Does that mean we can't apply for this until that budget is approved?
No, we would have to apply for it ahead of time. We just wouldn't, if we weren't going to be able to pay for it in any way, then we would just have to cancel the approval, and we wouldn't sign any contracts with any consultants until the new fiscal year begins anyway. So, and that's probably why it's expected that the work wouldn't start until the fall, because there's a month or so of getting the actual contract hammered out.
Well,
after
we need
the beginning of the fiscal year, which begins July 1st.
And so we need to pre-identify who we want to hire and how much it would cost and the scope of their work.
At least how much it would cost, which usually means, yes, the preferred consultant. So part of my work leading up to this, for a number of reasons, I will have to be contacting several consultants to get at least an estimate of what their costs would be for this kind of project. And then that would then be our proposal in for the application. And then after that, then there is probably an RFP or RFQ process, actually. Request for qualifications process, and the budget is predetermined at that point. And then you may or may not get applicants for that price. So, but then you choose from what you do get as based on their qualifications. So that's kind of an interesting difference between professional services for the city versus purchasing goods or construction or things like that. It's not a lowest bid, it's a best qualified
Good.
for the same price.
So once you find out that price that we would need, I would ask that you let each one of us know, because each one of us come from an alderman somewhere. Okay?
Right, that's
we
right.
all were identified by an alderman. That then we each contact our alderman and tell them about this and what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And so that, like you said, they are aware of what's going on, and ask them to support this for the city of New Bern.
Sure.
Okay? Yeah. So we can each be responsible for contacting our own alderman.
So you're speaking about the alderman that is in our district, not the one who accepted our applications.
I'm talking about the one who identified you, accepted your application, because there's a list of that.
Yeah.
That,
and that would cover.
does everybody have that list?
And that would cover all of them.
No, I don't.
Okay, yeah, I've got that. So if you'll send out that list again
Thank
to
you.
us all, okay?
Also, Matt, I believe that correct me if I'm wrong, but we have somebody that could do this for us already, right? Or did write the ones that we have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know that guy.
Well,
You
I
want me to
was.
talk to him?
Yeah.
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah. So I would suspect that we just got this information, I think, yesterday. So I would, just thinking about it today, I would suspect that we would probably have maybe a small working group out of the commission to help me and to make some decisions about how many different public meetings, who to meet with separately, stakeholders, yada, yada, yada. And then not only that, but then deciding at certain points when to bring it to you guys for just your review and updates. But also then reviewing the applications. Shouldn't just be one person doing that. Now, Mr. Ruggieri may already have a different modus operandi for that, where he uses other department heads or he uses other co-workers of mine or something. I don't know how he does that yet either. So kind of a learning experience for me.
I think if you find out all the who, what, when, why, and how,
Yeah.
bring it back to us, and we'll help you as much as we can.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
That sounds great.
All right? Because
And Matt, I have a request. I feel like a nut. I did not know until Ruth kept plugging tonight and got the answer that the house next to the one we've had so much difficulty with was actually going to be raised. In other words, I was not on the committee at that time, and I knew something was going on because they were tearing the windows out. But I had no idea that they had already planned to raise it.
The inside.
It would help when we're considering a property, if anything is being done to the adjoining property.
Yeah, okay. I agree.
Would it be possible through Dropbox to go back and call up an address and look at?
yes, I can answer that for you. Dropbox has, well, I know I do, and probably Trip does. I can go back from the time I've been on the board to pull up any COA that has come to the board.
Okay.
Because it's all, I don't delete anything out of my Dropbox. Because one thing Dropbox, when I got on the board.
You don't leave anything out. Doesn't it come, isn't it just there?
It's there, and it's just filed, in my Dropbox, it's filed by year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I can go back to that specific year and pull up.
Oh, but you gotta know the date.
You are
of the
current.
meeting you're looking at, right?
Well, like tonight, when Ellen said, when she got close to it, she said June, so I looked in June, it wasn't in June. Then I went to July and I found it and I said it was in July. But I just know the way my Dropbox is set up is that everything goes in by month, and I can pull up that specific month if I know the month and look and research it.
It's also on the city's website still. Every application complete is on the city's website, I think going back to 2017.
Is that also includes the staff recommendations and what was decided?
Yeah, because I couldn't get into Dropbox today, but every single thing was also uploaded to the city's website, and I just did all of that on my laptop through the city's website.
But how did you do that, Ellen, if you didn't know the date?
Well, I kind of remembered when we had seen that house, and that's why I said I think it was like June, July, because I remembered more or less that we had seen that house and approved that it was being lifted, and that Charles had made that presentation, and I mean, because that was a pretty fancy redo that he had proposed that we approved.
And I wasn't here because I would have remembered that, because then, specific things, certain things, I would have remembered that, because that was.
It's another time I had to make a trek to the hinterlands.
And that's the first one, isn't it, James, that they're doing that?
Yes, that I can remember, but Trip has been here, and Ruth has been here longer than I have, but they.
I wasn't here for the first.
So that's the first time I can remember that.
Right.
That's how.
I was here for the amendment to the certificate of appropriateness.
I'm going to say, make sure you don't lose that link or lose those files if at all possible, because when I took over that entire Dropbox from Morgan was wiped out.
Really?
Wow.
Because we did not have the access codes to get in, and so we had to set up a brand new one with me, and so I only have, starting from when I started. So if I could somehow sit down with you or something and bring a flash drive or
Okay.
a external drive or something.
I'll bring my laptop. We'll make arrangements and I'll bring my laptop
and
in.
I think Ellen brings up the good point about the website does have a lot of the packets and things still on it. So we may be just looking to fill in some gaps. But for example, today I was looking up, or yesterday I was looking up a project, and there's nothing anywhere to be found in our records, electronic or hard copy or anything. And so all I had was the video, because we do have all of those. So we do see the video, and sometimes I can see that, show things on the screen and stuff. So we may be able to see a quick answer to that on the video. I need some of those files to fill in some blanks.
Okay.
Well, those of us that are technically challenged, if we bring our computers to a developmental meeting, is it possible we could get it in there? Get the Dropbox put in?
Yeah, so several people have had issues with when they go to Dropbox to look up.
Today, nothing flowed.
Yeah, so some people will actually get a message saying that storage is full or there's no space available or something like that.
I got not found.
Well, that's because, I believe what that is, because when I got on the HVC, it ate up my Dropbox storage. So Dropbox called me and sent me an email and say, hey, if you want to keep these files, and I use Dropbox more than just for HVC, and I had a bunch of files up there, so I had to buy more. And every year, I think I got.
Oh, you have a subscription.
Right, I have a subscription, so it just
unlimited.
Right.
Okay. So even I don't have a subscription. I just have the office has the freebie, which I suspect.
Yeah, that's just two gigs
2
or something.
gigabytes.
Yeah, you'll eat that up quickly.
Right. So far I've used 0.7 or 0.8, 0.8 gigabytes. So I have quite a bit of room still left, but at some point it will get full. And so then there was also the issue that people weren't able to delete files to make room for new files.
That's right, you're not.
So,
Yeah.
so I have that whole thing into Dropbox, the Dropbox community, and email to the Dropbox technical staff. So we'll see what we get out of it. They said it takes a couple days to respond. So.
Okay, so demolition by neglect cases, number 6, you say there's none of those that we need to go over. And there is no general public left, so we have no comments, so the meeting is adjourned.
It was a cold one, folks.